Today I will be demonstrating how I accomplish this mid fade. Okay, so today my client did want a mid fade, and with this haircut, we were just using the regular mid fade method and not the mid drop fade method. And at the end of this, I did add enhancements to the cut, and this was just a haircut alone. It wasn't with the beard or anything. He did that himself before he came. So, um, in this cut, I'm going to focus on getting it as transparent as possible. So here you see me combing it, prepping it before I actually go in, doing any type of cutting. Just making sure I get every direction that it's naturally laying in before I go in to cut it is very crucial to me. So I just take my time with it and make sure I find every direction. My client does wear hats, so you can see it's like a separation between his natural hair indentation compared to other areas. So here I'm going in with the two open against the grain, and we're gonna knock this cut down as much as possible, just keeping it still as dark as possible. Just making sure I take everything down before going in to cut it, and still getting it in the direction that it's growing. Since I did comb it earlier, I was able to see which direction it was naturally growing in, so I just cut it in the same direction. Well, again, in the same direction, but against it. So here, just doing the same thing and making sure I kind of keep a little bit of that edge up as prominent as possible before actually cutting it off later towards the end, because I'm actually going to need that just to make his haircut stand out, since he is getting it cut and we're using enhancing. Once the enhancement goes away, then that's whenever his natural edge up will still be as prominent as it was when he left. So here's still just knocking down anything I see that's standing up, just because I don't want any type of loose hairs in the way while I'm just putting it together. I want to make sure that everything is as neat as possible, because with the system, the system that I'm using for this taper process, it is very, very specific. So I have to stay on course with it. And then you see me just prepping the edge up before I actually go in to cut it. Just making sure get everything laid down with the holding spray. And knowing you have to brush it is a big part of it as well. So here, using my Barber FX3 clippers, I'm going in and just creating that base guide where I'm going to have my taper begin. And I'm going in with the blade all the way closed here, just because it's very close and it cleans up enough hair to where I don't have to use the clippers and then go in with the trimmers to follow up with it before using my shaver. Once my base is created, now I'm able to go in and clean up everything underneath it, all the way up to it. And when I did set my guide in, I didn't set in a harsh guide. I made sure I flicked at it as I was going up, just so I didn't leave a hard line there for whenever I go to clean it up for the taper. And here, just making sure I clean up everything around it first. I don't want to miss any steps. So you can see it still got a little bit about a nape, but now I'm just going to make sure I get everything cleaned up by the beard, because I do want to get a nice transition in there for this taper. Now I'm getting ready to go in with the shaver. This is typically in order, so I'm making sure I clean up everything with the shaver. As you can see, I didn't really worry about the fact that there was like different areas that had more hair. I wasn't really stressing that, since I was going to be cleaning all of it up anyways. I'm just showing you here how I actually got the shaving portion. Typically I start from the bottom, just because I want to be able to kind of like get the rhythm of how I want to flick at it once I get to the upper portion of this taper. And just because every head shape is different, so I do want to make sure I'm finding like the natural grooves of it and everything while I'm doing this, so that whenever I do get up to that higher point, I don't have to worry about any like dips or dives into his scalp. making it harder for me to flick at with the trimmers. And so here, I know I'm not done with it all the way, but I'm just making sure that I get everything cleaned up in the sections that I'm cleaning it up in. And since for some reason I didn't get the rest of the footage for this cut, I did just only show this portion of it. So here, doing the same thing, cleaning everything up. Later on, I am still going to go in with the shavers and clean up at the nape as well. Get it up there so that now I can kind of flick at it, so that whenever I do go in with my trimmers, as you've seen previously, it won't be as harsh of a guide for me to flick at. I mean, it was just slight. It just literally fell off the bone. So now, making sure I get everything up as high as possible to that guide without actually setting in any harsh guides. So now, cleaning at it, just making sure I prepared for this taper. I mean, I could have done this later on in the cut, but I felt like knocking it out now and then getting to the actual process of the taper would actually be a smoother transition. So I made sure I did this before even going in for my taper. I wasn't going to do it at a longer length just because that would have been more of a chance for me setting a higher guide for myself. Now, going in with the 1/16th attachment, I'm going to make sure I create this guide halfway open. I set my my lever halfway just so that I can do all the attachment process with the lever the same way for the base guides, and then open the close whenever I do clean it up later. And I'm saying all that now just because, as I said earlier, I didn't get a chance to get the full cut. So here's the process of it now, and I'm just letting you know ahead of time. And you know what I'm saying? So here, just making sure that I keep it halfway open, flick up at the length that I want my transition to begin. So now going in with the 1/8 attachment, I'm gonna go up and about a 1/2 inch and set my next guide for it. And still, I want to make sure I flick up at it so that it doesn't make it harder for me later on whenever I go in and clean everything up for the next process of this taper. Still making sure I get the beard in there, even though I'm on the same process. And now for the last process of this, I am going in with the 1.5 attachment. And I'm just going to make sure that I create that last guide for it before going in with my my next attachment. And it's still halfway open. So this isn't like a major dive into his scalp. It's just like still me flicking up at the highest point of it, just so that I can get a transition from it. And since I haven't done anything else to it, I mean, it may look a little longer right now, but that's just because it hasn't gotten the taper. This is just the fading portion. So now it's still halfway open. Then I'm gonna make sure I go in with the 2 halfway open as well. Even though I did cut it down to 2 open, still want to go in halfway open all the way to close, because now I'm in the portion where I'm just down fading. I fade it up for my bases, and then I'm down fading for my taper. I mean, for my fading process. And here, just making sure that whenever I do this process, I'm doing it against the way that his hair is growing, just because it is going to leave more of prominence at certain points of it. So I do have to cut it a certain way. Now going in with the open to close method. Still making sure I do want to go in open. Even though I did cut it earlier open, I still want to make sure I can go in, and just in case I had anything else I need to flick at. Still going in with the open to close. As here, as you can see me, I'm just flicking at it, making sure I get that transition as high as possible with this with the 2 open. What I did with the 2 open earlier. Still don't want to go up too high because it is a mid fade, so I want to make sure I keep it in the mid range. But just as far as making everything transition with itself, it does grow different in certain areas, so I do want to make sure I do what's needed in those areas to make it look as transparent as possible. So here, still going in with the open to close method. Now going back down with the 1.5 attachment. I'm gonna make sure I do use this open to close method. Open using the corners mostly of the blade, and then when I have it closed, kind of just digging into those grooves or certain areas that I need to. As you can see, it's now closed, so now I'm just digging in those certain areas. Don't want to do too much, just using the corners of it, making sure it's more of a transition than another process for me. So here, just doing the same thing, kind of getting into those areas. I know everything isn't going to be as transparent as possible just right away. So I am going to have to go in and do like other things for it. But I do want to still keep it as dark as I can for the edge up portion. As you can see, it's transitioning some. I mean, nothing too major. Just still making it as transparent as possible before going any lower in this downfading portion of the cut. So here I'm still going close with it, making sure I just nudge at it once again before I actually do decide to go down. I did feel like there were some dark spots, so I would go halfway open or all the way closed or all the way open. Still trying to make sure I clean it up as much as possible. Now, here's the blade portion. So I'm going in halfway open first. All right, so halfway open first, just because I feel like this blade is a little bit longer. I mean, it isn't as close as the FX3s. So I'm just going in halfway open to all the way closed and then all the way open. Just for this portion, and just so I can, I'm going all the way closed just so I can clean up what I did with the FX3s or maybe even the trimmers at that point in time. Just making sure I clean up everything from that and then go up into it. Since this is a longer, since this cutting blade does have a longer length to it, I don't have to worry about the fact that I'm going up into my taper as much. I mean, up into my fade as much with this taper. I'm able to just flick at it with the edges and then get everything transitioned as smoothly as possible with the way that his hair is naturally growing. Now just brushing everything, making sure that I get it as close as possible to his skin. Laying it down and then brushing at it is going to help me determine where his hair is laying for this taper area. So I just have to make sure I actually lay the hair down in the direction that it's growing, and then it's gonna naturally flick at itself. And I didn't go in with the open to close yet with the 1/16. I'm still cleaning it up with the blade open to close. I mean halfway open to close method to open, and that's just like the base of this process, because I did give myself enough room for transitioning with the taper to fade portion of this cut. So here I'm able to kind of flick at those bottom guides where I have with the shaver and cleaned up a little bit with the trimmer. Still gonna have to go in and do some more detailing. I mean, of course, this is most definitely the detailing portion of this cut, just because this is where the transition lies between taper and fade. And since this is the natural, you know what I'm saying, mid fade, it is going to flow with the head shape of my client. And I'm just making sure I don't go into this too much. I do want to still use the corners, but since it is the kind of like one of the last portions of this taper, I am basically just detailing up until that point. I mean, I want to still flick at it as much as possible with this before having to go in with the 1/16 attachment and clean up the rest of it. I just want to make it a little bit easier and then the transition a lot smoother, so it just brings this cut together. And since I didn't get the full footage of the cut, this is the end of it, and this is the final result. So the cut with the enhancing and everything. If you like this cut, please leave a comment, like, share this video, and subscribe. And if you haven't already, go check out some content.